To talk with, of all things, with Jeffrey Deaver. Jeffrey is a world famous novelist. I mean, matter of fact, Jeffrey's working on the new James Bond novel, which is going to be out next year. And he's sold, I mean, tons and tons of books as a spy novelist, and happens to be on the line with us. Jeffrey, how are you?
Bill, how you doing today?
Doing great. And I'm sitting here holding your book, Edge, another New York Times bestseller. I'll show this to the TV audience out there. How many books have you written?
Well, I've written. I better sit down because I'm feeling tired when I mention the number. But it's, I think, about 27 at this point, 27, 28. And I wrote a little bit in my former incarnation of an attorney, but those are they're not as much fun as the novels, I have to say.
Yes, indeed, the novels are a lot of fun. So you're politically active. You get involved in these things. Are you just curious about politics, or what?
Oh well, I mean, everybody has to be involved. It's our responsibility. I look back to the the founding fathers, and they were basically they were farmers and businessmen, and they say, well, okay, now it's time to be involved in the government. So they went and started the country, and then they went back to their farms and so forth. I think it's everybody's job to be responsible, and if nothing else, to get out and vote. And nowadays, frankly, yes, my opinion, Phil, the hardest part is keeping track of everybody, all the different positions and everybody, and it's like a jigsaw puzzle out there, trying to put everything together. That can be pretty daunting sometimes.
Well, I know it, and the times have changed a little bit, because the founding fathers would work the farm or work their business or whatever, go to Congress, and then go back home. And now people go to Congress and then stay too long, and then end up going to jail, and then go back home. So.
Well, and then sometimes they go back to Congress, even after jail, which is
that's right, from jail,
which is the most frightening part of all. That's right. So.
Well, have you thought about getting involved to the point of running and getting involved that much yourself?
Because I'll tell you, Phil, I am happiest when I sit in a dark room and make up things. Well, I guess you could say that a lot of people in Washington make up things, right? That's right. We all get paid to make up things, and
that's right.
But no, I'm kind of an introspective sort of person, and a politician. If he or she is worth his salt, they get out there, they meet the constituents, they shake hands, they listen to things, and they take that to heart, and then they get back and make some change to represent their constituents. And you can't really do that when you sit in a dark room and expect your constituents to come to you. Now, if they did, I'd cook them dinner, I'd serve wine, we'd have coffee, and we'd talk a lot. But I think you really have to get out on the road a bit.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. I mean, and people say, well, you talk a good game on the radio, why don't you go there and run? For one thing, I think everybody has their place in this whole big jigsaw puzzle that you're talking about.
So true.
And my place is sitting here talking about it and giving information and things like. I know my strengths and I know my weaknesses. My strength is not getting out on the road and pressing the flesh with folks and begging for money from people to help your campaign. I can't see me doing that.
Well, and I can't eat that much pulled pork down in my neck of the woods.
Right.
All the people campaigning
rubber
in
chickens.
North Carolina, rubber chicken, pulled pork, and hot dogs. I just can't. I can't do that.
So you're in North Carolina, are you?
I'm a Tar Heel, right?
Well, that's where I'm from.
No, are you kidding me?
Yeah,
really?
I'm from Nashville, North Carolina, actually.
Well, I'm sitting in the heart right at the moment, looking out at my at the town of Chapel Hill, which is, of course, home of the Heels, right?
I was there last weekend
fan?
for the William and Mary game.
No, were you really?
Yes, absolutely.
And
we're
you
big
didn't come by,
fans.
and you could have come to my reclusive den, and we would have had some coffee or a glass of wine together. But
I went by. I knocked at the gate, but I ended up at John Edwards' place, so by mistake.
Oh, you did? Yeah, by mistake. Well, no comment about that. But I do have to say, I live another place, too. I have a very small place outside of Washington, D.C., because I used to live there. And that does satisfy my need to be in the nation's hub, because it is a fascinating place.
Oh, it's got a lot of energy.
Whether you're left, right, or center, that's where the work of the country gets done. And I think everybody has to go there. You have to see Congress. You can't help but be moved when you see the memorials, but also go to see Congress at work. That's what it's there for. It's us. It's the people of America. We have to go see it.
So what do you think is going to change? I hope something's going to change. Do you think that the people that got elected last night are going to actually roll back some of this Obama mess?
I think what's happened is that, and I agree to some extent with the complaints. I think My problem is that it's this concept of deadlock. It's people not reaching across the aisle. And it's the polarization that drives me crazy because I grew up outside of Chicago, and we had a senator there, Everett Dirksen, Republican senator, that one of the probably the most famous senators Illinois has produced.
Crafted the compromise for the Civil Rights Bill.
Well, the compromise, you see, that's what it's all about. And back then, yes, you happened to be a Democrat or a Republican, but more important was getting the job of Washington done. It was treated as a job. It was a task that had to be done the same way I write a book, you put on a radio show, my mechanic fixes my car. And there was less, I don't know, it seemed like there was less emotion involved. Or maybe I'm just getting old, Phil. Tell me I'm just getting old. Things were the same back then.
Well, I think the thing about it, though, is, Jeffrey, is I don't think that the parties were as divided. I think they were closer together ideologically. I think that they were... I think that you had the Republican Party that was just right of center, and you had the Democrat Party that was just left of center. But I think right now, certainly coming from a conservative as I am, I think the Democrat Party with Nancy Pelosi and some of these folks are way over on the left. They're not the same as Hubert Humphrey. They're not the same as Edmund Muskie and these people.
Exactly, and some of the more radical Tea Party people are not like Everett Dirksen, people who were, they were able to reach across the aisle, and they looked at each issue. We didn't have the straight party line votes that we have nowadays, and you can almost know exactly. You don't even have to watch the news. You don't have to put on Fox or CNN to see how a vote's going to go. You know beforehand, and I think we need to have some courageous folks out there who will make some decisions. And Phil, I know you're not leading into this, but that's one of the points of my new book, Edge, which is a thriller.
See?
But it's set in Washington, D.C., and there is a plot. And all my books like The Bone Collector, which was the movie, and my book that came out earlier, The Burning Wire. These are just fast-paced thrillers, but they all have some kind of substance to them. I like to think they do in any event. And one of the key issues I look at in Edge, which takes place in Washington, D.C., is the polarization. And because it's a thriller, I kind of look at, maybe how dangerous polarization can be and how people need to say, well, on this issue, I feel one way. On that issue, I've looked at it, and the other side has some good points. And let's see if we can take the good points they have and the good points I have. And in my book, of course, it ends up being quite a bit of a thrill ride, but that is the very issue that I look at because I got so frustrated watching this strident arguing back and forth where the other side doesn't even listen to what their opponents are saying.
Right. Well, I think that there needs to be a lot of listening going on. That needs to, and compromise on some things. And we've talked, of course, when you got bedrock principles on certain things, and the specific issues to me are like things like illegal immigration and things like that. But
sure.
I think that sometimes though I think, Jeffrey, if they don't do anything, we're better off. If they just sit up there and do nothing and pass nothing, then we're okay.
Well, Phil, it was very interesting. I was reading a book, and I wish I could remember the title, but it was a historical nonfiction about the Founding Fathers. I'm quite interested in American history. And there was a huge dispute. Of course, Jefferson, Madison, and Adams, the whole crowd back then, they're forming the Constitution. These huge arguments about federalism versus states' rights. It's identical to nowadays.
Right.
This is really the backbone of the country. How intrusive should the federal government be? And of course, we need uniformity. I don't want to get on an airplane that's governed by the laws of North Carolina and fly to a state where, say, Missouri has their own laws. I think certainly the federal government has an important role. But all we have to do is look at the deficit, look at the budget nowadays. We probably don't want to do that. It would only be depressing. But to know that we certainly need a compromise between the two.
Well, I got to ask you this before we let you go, and that is you're writing the new James Bond novel, which I think John Gardner took that over for a while, right?
He did indeed, and Raymond Benson, a very talented author, Kingsley Amos wrote the first one back in the 60s, I think, maybe early 70s. But the Ian Fleming estate had sponsored a literary award that I won about 5 years ago for my book, Garden of Beasts. And in accepting the award, I commented that I was just so delighted because I had been a big fan of Ian Fleming's character, James Bond, from a very young age, and he influenced my writing. And they said, well, let's call Jeff and see if he'd be interested in writing the next, they're called continuation novels. And they've tapped me for that, and I just finished it, actually the day before Election Day, I'm happy to say. And
so you came in before the deadline?
I did indeed.
That's unusual for a novelist.
It is very unusual for a novelist, but I have to say I enjoyed writing it very much, and the book will take place in the present day. Bond is a 29 or 30-year-old secret agent working for the British government, but we have the same characters that we've known from the series before. There's a character from the CIA, and we know M and Q and Moneypenny, and the book will be published in May of next year, and I had great fun writing it. I think it's going to be something your listeners will really enjoy.
Well, is there any chance they'll make that into one of the Bond movies?
Well, yeah, very likely. When you do a book contract, there's a side contract, an addendum that has to do with the movie rights, just in case it gets picked up, and we decide all of this stuff ahead of time, of course. The only problem, as I understand it, and I'm just the writer. Nobody really fills me in on things, but as I understand it, the film company, I believe it's MGM Studios, has had some financial problems, and so the most recent Bond film with Daniel Craig had to be put on hold, unfortunately, for a while. So whether this one gets made or not, we all certainly hope so. But meanwhile, I just keep my head down and get the book done. That's my level of expertise.
That's all you can do, and then let the other stuff fall in place when it does.
Exactly.
Well, the book is called Edge, and it's one of many that's written by Jeffrey Deaver. You can pick it up wherever fine books are sold. Jeff, appreciate it very much. It was a pleasure getting to know you.
Well, thanks, Phil. I like it. I like talking politics with somebody who knows what he's about. That's very good.
Hey, next time I'll come see you instead of John Edwards when I'm in Chapel
Hill.
Hill.
We'll watch a game. How's that?
There you go. Absolutely. Looking forward to it. Thanks, Jeff.
Take care.
All right.